from June the 1st with
seriously they're going to get it.
What I've said about the whole business, I think it would be much better if we could now move on and focus on the next steps.
We must try avoid repeating ourselves. Yvette could.
Well, I don't know how, but I mean, if I can ask the same question, what else can I do?
Thank you, Prime Minister. I have to say it is extremely surprising that you won't provide that evidence to the Cabinet Secretary or have any independent verification of it. But let me ask you about your instructions now to parents who either have COVID or have the symptoms of COVID, who won't know how seriously they're going to get it, and who have no local childcare available. Is the message to those parents now the one from Jenny Harries to stay at home unless there's a risk to life, and if you do get ill, contact the community hubs? Or is it the message from the Transport Secretary and the Communities Secretary to be able to travel to wherever you have a support network? In the words of Robert Jenrick this morning, if you don't have ready access to childcare, then you can do as Dominic Cummings did. Which is it?
Well, I'm not certain, Yvette, that there's as much of a discrepancy between those two bits of advice as you suggest. And I think what Jenny was trying to say was that if you've got exceptional difficulties with childcare, then you should take account of them.
Okay, but we're not talking about exceptional difficulties with childcare. We're talking about the very normal difficulties with childcare. A survey from Mumsnet today found that a quarter of parents said they didn't have access to local childcare when they had COVID and were in exactly the same circumstances as Dominic Cummings. A third of them said they'd be more likely to break the rules now. So if you are trying to tackle local outbreaks and prevent them spreading, you need to be giving clear advice to parents. Yeah. And what is it? Because it is not clear to me from listening to Jenny Harries and to Robert Jenrick what that advice to parents who are in Dominic Cummings' situation.
The clear advice is to stay at home unless you absolutely have to go to work to do your job. If you have exceptional problems with childcare, then that may cause you to vary your arrangements, and that's clear. We're also saying from tomorrow that, and this is an important development, that there is a new test and trace operation which will change people's lives and which will require a great deal of thought and compliance, but which I think will be worth it for the whole nation. And the fundamental advice remains absolutely unchanged, which is wash your hands, observe social distancing, and self-isolate if you have symptoms and get a test.
I'm asking specifically about your advice to parents who have COVID. Advice to parents you are not giving. The reason that you are not giving, the reason you are ducking it, the reason you're trying to.
I'm not ducking. I'm not ducking. Actually, I've just said that I agree. I don't think that you're actually
travel across the country, even though it may mean them having to go into a hospital somewhere else where they may see further infections. Do you want them to do that? Or do you want them to stay put when they don't have local childcare, like around a quarter of parents?
Yvette, I think you'd have to look at each individual case, and there were particular circumstances that my advisor explained. I think what Jenny Harries was trying to say was that where there are exceptional difficulties, then people needed to take account of them. And other than that, I don't really know what I can add.
No, here's the problem, Prime Minister. The reason you are ducking this is because the reason you're not giving people a straight answer is because you are trying to protect Dominic Cummings. The reason you've sent all of your ministers out to say fudgy things and unclear things is because you are trying not to incriminate Dominic Cummings and you don't want to apologise for him. The problem is that means you are putting your political concerns ahead of clear public health messages to parents who have coronavirus. And the consequence of that is putting your political concerns above the national interest. You are trashing, in the words
of public
question, please. If I may say so, I don't wish to be.
Let me put this to you as a precise question. On the way into this crisis, you were criticised for getting a whole series of messages, decisions wrong on shaking hands, on business as usual, on letting Cheltenham go ahead.
Have a question, please.
series of those things, and 40,000 people are dead. We need you to get this right now. So can you tell us, you have a choice between protecting Dominic Cummings and putting the national interest first. Which will it be, Prime Minister?
Well, I think my choice is the choice that the British people will want us all to make, Yvette, and that is, as far as we possibly can, to lay aside party political point scoring and to put the national interest first, and to be very clear with the British public about what we want to do and how we want to take this country forward. And we come now to an important juncture. We're moving to step 2 of our roadmap. And I think that this conversation has, to my mind, illuminated why it's so important for us to move on and be very clear with the British public about how we want to deal with that and how we want to make progress. And frankly, when they hear nothing but politicians squabbling and bickering, it's no wonder that they feel confused and bewildered. It is much, much more important that we stress the vital messages, stay at home if you can, go to work if you must, though that will change obviously for some sectors as June the 1st approaches, and then June the 15th when more non-essential retail comes on. We must have social distancing. It's absolutely vital. And really those messages need to be pumped out the whole time by you, Yvette, just as much as me.
Prime Minister, we would love to have clearer messages from you. I need you to give those clearer messages.
We've had a long time, Yvette. We must move on. Are there any other further questions? I'm obliged to ask the committee. You want to ask about the Prime Minister's advisor, otherwise we're moving on. Simon Hall, very brief, please.
Thank you. Agree entirely with the seriousness of the situation, but